When Donald Trump landed in the quiet Texas town of Liberty Falls that 4th of July morning, no one, not even his own security team, knew exactly why he picked it. The town didn't have a stadium. It didn't have press. It didn't even have running water in half the park bathrooms. But what it did have was a girl named Harper. And by the time the sun went down, her voice, weak and worn from surgeries and prayer, would light up a nation that had nearly forgotten how to listen. Liberty Falls wasn't on most maps. A few hundred people lived there. They had a post office, a diner called Grits and Glory, and a war memorial with more dust than flowers. The biggest thing to ever happen there was the year a tornado tore through the Dollar General and knocked over the flagpole. No one ever forgot that day, not because of the storm, but because the town's oldest veteran stood in the rain holding that bent flagpole upright with both arms until help arrived. That kind of pride ran deep in Liberty Falls. They didn't protest. They didn't post. They just worked, fought, believed. And Harper, little Harper Jane Collins, was raised on all of it. She was born small, too small. Doctors said she'd never cry, never walk, never sing. But they didn't know what was stitched into her. They didn't know her grandfather fought in 3 wars. They didn't know her father laid pipe in frozen oil fields until his hands cracked like canyon walls. They didn't know her mother taught her to pray before she could speak. They also didn't know she was born with only one functioning lung. By age 5, Harper had been in and out of hospitals so many times she learned how to count by IV bags. She couldn't run, couldn't climb, couldn't shout. But she could sing, just one note at a time, slowly, carefully, like a bird with a broken wing learning how to fly in circles. Every 4th of July, Harper would stand by the wooden fence near the town square and hum the National Anthem. She didn't sing it loud. She couldn't. But she knew every word, and she believed every one. The mayor had promised to let her sing the anthem one day when she got strong enough, but every year someone else got the microphone. Someone louder, someone safer. Until this year. This year, the singer didn't show. It was 10 minutes before the parade. The stage had been set, the speakers humming, the folding chairs full. The mayor's face had gone pale, pacing behind the float trailer. Then came the whispers. Trump might be coming. Not a spokesman, not a surrogate. Trump himself. No one believed it. Not really. They thought maybe it was a joke, maybe a decoy, until the Secret Service black SUVs pulled in, and the sky overhead thundered with the low hum of Marine One circling once and disappearing. The mayor nearly passed out, and Harper, sitting on the edge of the platform in her red dress, her little oxygen tank hidden behind her like a secret, just looked up and said, "Is he really coming?" Someone handed her a flag. Maybe. That's when the mayor's assistant panicked. "The singer's stuck in Abilene. Tractor accident on the freeway. We have no one to sing the anthem." The mayor looked like he was about to scream, "Get a Bluetooth speaker." That's when Harper stood up. Her legs shook, but her voice didn't. "I can do it," she said. Everyone turned. The mayor's assistant forced a smile. "Oh, honey, I think this is going to be, well, it's going to be a big deal. It's probably better if—" "She knows the words," Harper's mom said quietly. She was always quiet. Strong mothers usually are. The assistant blinked. "But she's not on the list." Then a voice behind them said, "She is now." They turned. Donald J. Trump stood at the base of the stage, wearing a dark blue blazer and a white open-collar shirt, no tie. Just a flag pin and that unmistakable posture. Calm, director, unbothered. Harper gasped. Her tiny chest expanded slowly, as much as it could, and her eyes went wide. Trump looked at her and said, "You want to sing it?" Harper nodded. No stuttering, no fear. Trump glanced at the mayor's assistant. Then, let her. The microphone was still hot. A hush fell over the town. Not because of the moment, but because everyone knew this kind of thing didn't happen. Not anymore. Not without press teams. Not without branding. But here he was, giving the stage to a little girl with one lung and a dream the size of Texas. Harper stepped up. Her hands were shaking. Trump whispered something in her ear. No one could hear what he said, but her shoulders relaxed, her chin lifted. And then she sang. It wasn't loud, it wasn't perfect, but it was real. Each word came out slowly, like every syllable was carved from her ribs. But she made it, all the way through. And by the time she reached the land of the free, people were crying. Soldiers, moms, a man in a wheelchair with a Vietnam patch on his vest. Even Trump didn't speak. When she finished, the town didn't erupt in applause. They just stood there, in awe, not just at her voice, but at the way she looked at the flag as she finished. Like she was seeing something most people forgot how to see. Trump clapped once, twice. Then the crowd followed. Later that night, Harper would sit with her mom on the porch and ask what he said to her before she sang. Her mom smiled. "What did he say, baby?" Harper smiled too. He said, "Don't sing it like a girl with one lung. Sing it like a girl with one country." And that's what she did. By the time the fireworks began, Harper was asleep, curled up in the back seat of her mother's old truck, oxygen tube clipped gently to her nose. Her tiny chest rose and fell like slow waves. She didn't hear the crowd chanting her name. She didn't know a local pastor was weeping into a folded flag. And she didn't see Donald Trump, arms folded, watching the sky alone from behind the stage, with the look of a man who'd just remembered why he fought so hard in the first place. Liberty Falls didn't have a news crew, but someone had an iPhone. 2 rows from the front, a teenager named Cody, shirtless and sunburned, holding a Mountain Dew can and a pocket Constitution, had filmed the whole thing. He uploaded it to TikTok with the caption, "This little girl just saved the 4th of July. Trump let her sing. I'm not crying. You're crying." 17 minutes later, it had 4 million views. It jumped to Instagram, then Twitter, then a Facebook group called Veterans Who Love America reposted it with the headline, "The Anthem We Needed. Thank you, Mr. President." By midnight, it had hit national news. But Harper didn't know. She was dreaming of lights in the sky and flags waving, and a single voice, her own, carving its way through a nation too divided to listen to itself anymore. Trump didn't leave right away. He stayed longer than planned. Secret Service was tense. Staff begged him to move on to the next city, but he waved them off. "Give me 10 minutes, he said. He walked through the crowd. No cameras, just people. He shook hands, hugged a woman who had lost her husband in Iraq, took a selfie with a boy who had his face painted like the American flag. And finally, he stopped at the war memorial. Dust on the granite, names chiseled into it like forgotten prayers. He stood there in silence. An old man with a Navy hat walked up behind him and said, "She brought something back tonight, didn't she?" Trump didn't look away from the names. She reminded everyone what the anthem's about. The man nodded. And what it costs? Trump turned to him. You serve? Vietnam. 3rd Marine Division. Lost a brother. 2 friends. Trump held out his hand. Thank you. No, sir, the man said. Thank her. The next morning, the world changed for Harper. Her mom's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Texts, missed calls, emails from producers and anchors and morning shows. Everyone wanted her. Everyone wanted the girl with the one lung and the voice that stopped a president in his tracks. A limousine showed up by noon. No one knew who sent it. Inside was a man in a suit. Quiet. Professional. He handed Harper's mom a simple folder. Compliments of Mr. Trump, he said. Inside the folder was a check. No press release, no speech. Just a check. Made out to Liberty Falls Regional Hospital for an amount that stunned everyone. On the bottom, a note written in Trump's handwriting, "No kid should ever sing with a tank at her side. Fix it. D.T." The hospital would later confirm it received a donation large enough to build a new pediatric respiratory wing. Harper's name was already etched in the plans. Reporters tried to get the story, but Trump refused interviews. Let the kid have the moment, he told them. On the campaign trail, advisors begged him to mention the anthem moment in speeches. He refused. Not everything is for applause, he said. But word spread. And everywhere he went, people began bringing signs that said, "Let her sing. One lung. One anthem. One nation. Harper for hope." A movement started. They didn't plan it. It just happened. And Harper? She stayed home. Doctors wanted to run tests. Her oxygen levels had dipped during the performance, and her body was exhausted. But Harper didn't care. She kept singing. Slowly. Softly. Even when no one was listening. Then came the letter. Delivered by hand. Sealed with gold foil. The presidential seal stamped on the front. It was from Trump. Not typed. Not written by staff. Handwritten. In black Sharpie. Harper, you reminded me what America is. Not perfect, but brave. You sang when others wouldn't. You showed us that courage doesn't come from lungs. It comes from the heart. I won't forget you. Neither will the country. And if I'm ever back in the White House, your song plays first. Love, Donald J. Trump. Harper didn't cry when she read it, but her mom did, and so did the mailman who delivered it. Later that night, the mayor of Liberty Falls held an emergency council meeting. A local veteran proposed renaming the Central Park stage to Harper's Voice. The vote was unanimous. Weeks passed, but the story didn't fade. A documentary crew showed up. A Texas senator quoted Harper's song in a speech on the Senate floor. Teachers in Georgia played the video for their students during civics class. And one morning, Harper woke up to find a box on her porch. Inside was a small American flag in a glass case. The same one that had flown over the Capitol the night she sang. A note inside read, "Your anthem moved the world, and that world belongs to you now. Keep singing. The country's listening." It wasn't signed, but the initials carved into the bottom of the case, DT 7.425, said everything. 3 weeks after Harper sang in Liberty Falls, a letter arrived in a thick blue envelope with a gold eagle embossed on the back. Her mom opened it slowly, hands trembling like she already knew what it said. Inside were 2 formal invitations, one for Harper and one for her mother, to perform the National Anthem live at the National Memorial Tribute in Washington, D.C., set to air on national television during prime time. At the bottom of the invitation was a handwritten note. "You already earned it. Now just be you." D.T. Harper smiled so wide her oxygen tube slipped off. She didn't say a word, just clutched the invitation to her chest like it was a crown made of stars. The next day, Trump's personal team arranged everything: flights, hotel, a private nurse, a medical advisor. Secret Service even sent a local agent to walk Harper through what travel would look like. No cameras, no statements. Trump's only instruction: make her feel like she's going to the moon. The town held a small send-off. The mayor cried. Veterans lined the streets with small flags. A local mechanic spray-painted his tow truck with the words, "Liberty Falls loves you, Harper," in red, white, and blue. The plane had soft seats and a basket of candy on every row. Harper's mom didn't stop holding her hand. Not once. When they landed, they were greeted by a woman with a soft voice and a badge that simply said, "Presidential Protocol. Welcome, Harper." The event was 2 days away, but the moment they arrived in D.C., everything changed. Medical tests, breathing treatments, vocal stress analysis. Her doctors back home had warned that Harper's health was fragile, but the national exposure, the pressure, the adrenaline, they could push her body too far. The White House physician reviewed her scans and frowned. Her vitals are strong enough to walk and speak, but singing, especially under bright lights and pressure, could put her in respiratory distress. Harper overheard him. She waited until he left the room, then looked at her mom. "I don't want to back out." Her mom wiped a tear. "Baby, this isn't about backing out. It's about staying alive." Harper sat quietly, then whispered, "I only feel alive when I'm singing." That night, as the medical team debated quietly outside her hotel suite, someone knocked at the door. It was Trump. No cameras, no handlers, just him. He stepped inside, nodded at her mom, and sat at the edge of the couch like he'd done this 100 times. "Word is," he said, "they're scared you might collapse on national TV." Harper nodded. He leaned forward. "Are you scared?" She paused. "Not of singing. Just of it being the last time." Trump stared at her, then slowly reached into his jacket. He pulled out a small item wrapped in cloth. "This," he said, unwrapping it, "belonged to a girl I met during my first campaign. She was sick, too. Gave me this pin and said, 'Wear this when you forget who you're fighting for.' I've carried it every day since." He handed it to her. It was a tiny enamel heart with stars and stripes cracked in one corner. He stood up. "You don't have to sing for the cameras. You don't even have to sing for the country. Just sing for one person. That's all it takes to change everything." Harper looked up at him. "Who?" Trump smiled. "Whoever needs it most." Then he left. The next morning, her vitals were worse. Fever, shallow breathing. The White House doctor called for a halt. They prepped to cancel. But Harper wouldn't stay in bed. She dressed herself. Red dress, small boots, tiny pin on her collar. And just before the team could say no, she walked into the hallway and said, "If I'm going to fall apart, let it be while I'm standing." At 7:59 p.m., the nation tuned in. The stage was lit in front of the Lincoln Memorial. Over 12 million people watched from their homes. The host introduced her, and Harper, frail, glowing, fierce, walked alone to the microphone. No oxygen tank, No staff, just her. In the front row sat Trump. He didn't clap, he didn't wave, he just placed one hand over his heart and watched. And Harper sang. It wasn't loud, it wasn't even smooth, but it was real. Painfully, beautifully real. At the line, gave proof through the night, she paused. The crowd held its breath. Her shoulders trembled. Her chest heaved. Then she finished the line. Slowly, like every vowel weighed 5 pounds. But she did it. And when she reached Home of the Brave, the last note cracked, just barely. But it didn't matter, because by then, the entire audience was standing. Even the broadcast anchors were crying. Even hardened journalists who had mocked Trump for years were shaking their heads in silence. After the performance, she was helped backstage where medics waited. She collapsed into her mother's arms, conscious but exhausted. As they wheeled her into the back for oxygen and rest, a member of Trump's staff handed her a sealed envelope. Inside, a small white card read, "You didn't sing it with one lung. You sang it with the whole country. Rest now. You've done more than most ever will. DT." That night, the clip shattered social media, and the hashtag #, Harper Anthem, trended #1 worldwide. In living rooms across the country, people stood in their homes, some for the first time in years, hand over heart, crying as they watched a little girl remind them what it meant to belong to something greater than themselves. Trump never gave a speech, but he left behind something far stronger: a memory, a voice, and a reminder that sometimes the smallest breath carries the loudest truth. Harper spent the next 3 days in recovery. Oxygen tubes, low lights, and a round-the-clock nurse provided by Trump's team. She didn't talk much, didn't need to. The world was already talking for her. Millions had seen her fall into her mother's arms after that final note. But instead of sparking pity, it ignited something else: pride, patriotism, and a question no one could shake. If she can stand up for the anthem, why can't we? The clip of her cracked final note hit 140 million views in 5 days. Not from bots, not from press, from parents, veterans, teachers, farmers. People who hadn't stood for the anthem in years suddenly stood again, without apology. And across Middle America, a quiet movement began. It started small. A veteran in Nebraska painted "One lung, one anthem, one nation." Across his barn, a second-grade class in Missouri sang Harper's version of the anthem every morning before math. A trucker in Georgia broadcast her voice through his CB radio every night before he slept on the side of the road. Then came the letters. Tens of thousands. Sent to Liberty Falls, to Harper, to Trump, to anyone who would listen. A group of Marines who'd lost 2 friends in Afghanistan wrote, "She reminded us what we fought for." A mother of a boy with Down syndrome wrote, "My son thinks Harper is a superhero. So do I." A blind preacher from Tennessee wrote, "I couldn't see her sing, but I felt the country come back together for 90 seconds. Even Trump's inner circle was shaken. These weren't voters. These were hearts. These were lives changed by one voice. And Harper? She stayed quiet. Until one morning, her mom wheeled her onto the porch and handed her a folder. Inside were dozens of printed messages, but one stood out. "Harper, I stood up in my living room for the first time since I lost my legs in Iraq. Because you stood first. Sean, Oklahoma. Harper whispered, "Can I write back?" She did. One letter, one sentence, written in pencil. "I stood for you too." The message was posted on X and spread like wildfire. But not everyone liked it. Within 48 hours, major networks began to question the story. Was she coached? Was this a political stunt? Was Trump using her? Pundits debated if the anthem moment had been rehearsed. One anchor asked, "Is this patriotism or propaganda?" Trump didn't respond, but he made a phone call to Harper. She was lying in bed, watching cartoons when the phone rang. Her mom answered, listened, then handed it to her. "It's him." Harper sat up. Trump's voice was calm, soft, but unmistakable. "You okay, sweetheart?" She nodded. "They're saying it was fake," she whispered. "I know. Let them talk." "Did I do something wrong?" "Number. You did something right. That's why they're mad." There was silence. Then Harper asked, "Should I sing again?" Trump waited. "Only if you want to. You've already done enough." But deep inside, Harper felt something rising. Not fear, not pressure, conviction. "I want to." And that's when everything shifted again. The next day, a video surfaced, not from Trump, not from media, but from Harper herself. She sat at her kitchen table, hooked up to oxygen, the little flag pin still on her collar. She looked directly into the phone and said, "I didn't sing to be famous. I didn't sing to be political. I sang because I love my country, and because someone believed in me when others didn't." The video ended there. No music, no effects. But it went more viral than the anthem itself. Even critics softened. Some backed off, some didn't. One network ran a headline, "The Dangerous Rise of Emotional Patriotism." Another said, "Is Trump weaponizing sick children?" But people weren't listening to the media anymore. They were listening to each other. In churches, they played Harper's anthem before communion. In truck stops, people stood up and saluted their screens. In diner jukeboxes across the country, someone had replaced every classic track with her 90-second recording. Even at baseball games during National Anthem delays, announcers would say, "Let's do the Liberty Falls version." And still, Harper said nothing else. She didn't tour, didn't sign books. She stayed home until a knock came at the door. It was a woman in a gray suit, from the Trump campaign. She had a folder, a request. Trump wanted to invite Harper to a private event, no press, on Constitution Day, to sing for a group of Gold Star families at a closed ceremony. Harper asked one question: "Will it help people feel proud again?" The woman smiled. "That's why he asked for you." Trump didn't need her to win votes. He needed her to remind the country what the flag was for. Not for parades, not for speeches, but for the ones who gave everything and never got to hear the anthem again. And so, Harper said yes. But there was something different this time. This time, she didn't sing alone. She invited 6 other children, each with a story: a burn survivor, a child cancer patient, a boy with a prosthetic leg. All of them had been inspired by her anthem. All of them had asked her if they could sing with her one day. And Trump, quietly, behind the scenes, made it happen. No cameras, no media, just one room, one flag, one piano, and 7 voices. Together, they sang. And at the end, Trump stood and whispered, "That's what America sounds like when it's healing." The letter came in a red velvet envelope with gold lining and a wax seal shaped like a crown. Inside was a formal invitation, not from a politician or media executive, but from the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. It read, "To Miss Harper Jane Collins, the people of our nation humbly request your presence to sing your country's anthem at the closing ceremony of the United States-UK Unity Summit. You have reminded the world what it means to stand for something. With honor, we invite you to stand again." Harper held the letter with shaking fingers. Her mom read it aloud twice. The air in the living room felt heavy, powerful, like it carried history. Trump knew about the letter before she did. His foreign affairs team had called him the moment it crossed the embassy. He sat with the envelope on his desk, thinking. His advisors urged him to say yes. The optics, the diplomacy, the headlines. But Trump wasn't thinking about headlines. He was thinking about Harper. She had already given everything. Her health was still fragile, her spirit strong, but her body, worn thin. Still, he wanted her to decide. So he picked up the phone. This time, it was her mom who answered. She passed the phone gently, and Harper's voice came through, raspy but calm. "I got the letter." "I know," Trump said. "What do you think?" There was a pause. Then, "I think I want to show the world how much I love this flag." Trump didn't speak. Then, finally, "If you go, you won't be alone." 2 days later, Trump's team released a simple press statement. Harper Jane Collins will sing the National Anthem in London at the personal request of our closest ally. She will be escorted by presidential staff and supported by America's finest. No fanfare, no press tour. But the world took notice. The story hit global headlines. British tabloids wrote, "The American angel with one lung is coming to London." French news outlets posted, "Not all superheroes wear capes, some wear flag pins." In Liberty Falls, the town threw a going-away party. Homemade banners, fireworks, a new mural on the side of the diner that read, "One voice, one flag, all of us." Trump watched the coverage from Mar-a-Lago, alone in a quiet room. He didn't speak to press, but one staffer overheard him say, "She's doing more with one lung than most do with a full platform." The flight to London was long. Harper slept most of the way, oxygen gently misting into her nose, her mother holding her hand tight. When she landed, the crowd was waiting. Not reporters, children. Dozens of kids with disabilities, dressed in red, white, and blue, waving both flags. They held signs that read, "Harper gave us courage. Sing for all of us." The Prime Minister met her personally. "She may not be our citizen," he said, "but today, she's our inspiration too." The ceremony was held in the grand garden of Buckingham Palace. No podium, no stage lights, just a single microphone and a piano under the open sky. Harper stepped up, breathing slow, eyes calm. Trump watched on a screen in silence. As she sang, the wind picked up, and for a moment, it carried her voice across the garden, over the flags, through the crowd. The anthem sounded different that day. Not louder, not smoother, but deeper. At Home of the Brave, the crowd stood, not because they were told, but because they couldn't help it. Afterward, the British choir joined in with God Save the King. But the moment belonged to Harper. When it ended, the Prime Minister stepped forward. He placed a small medal in her hand and said, "You didn't just sing a song. You carried a nation." That night, a clip of the anthem aired globally. And for one brief hour, across languages and politics and oceans, people remembered what grace sounded like. Back home, Trump met her at the airport. No crowd, no speech, just him. She smiled when she saw him. "Did I do okay?" He nodded. "You didn't sing for them. You sang us into them." She giggled. "That sounds like poetry." Trump grinned. "Maybe I'm getting soft." She took his hand and said, "No, maybe you're just finally getting heard." And he didn't answer. But that night, staff noticed something new hanging in his office. Next to the Constitution, next to the flag, a framed photo of Harper on stage in London. Hand over heart, eyes on the sky. Underneath, a plaque that simply read, "The anthem that reached further than any campaign ever could." Harper came home to banners, church bells, and homemade pie. Liberty Falls turned out in full. It wasn't just a welcome, it was a homecoming. But across the country, something was shifting. The closer the election drew, the louder the noise got. Not from Harper, not from Trump, but from the people who couldn't stand what she represented: truth, patriotism, and unity without shame. The London performance had done more than touch hearts. It had rattled cages. Editorials began to surface. Child propaganda in a post-Trump world. Why the anthem needs to evolve, not be romanticized. Harper's voice is sweet, but dangerous. One late-night host sneered, "She's a great singer." Too bad she's become the poster child for right-wing emotional manipulation. Another mocked her cracked final note. "I've heard stronger lungs on my dog after a nap." Harper didn't see any of it. Her mom shielded her, but Trump did. He watched it all, silently. No tweets, no statements, just clenched jaws and phone calls behind closed doors. "Let them talk," he told his staff. "We'll speak later, and louder." But the next flashpoint came where no one expected it. A high school in upstate New York canceled its morning pledge and anthem tradition. Citing potential emotional distress, they opted to replace it with a moment of silent personal reflection. It was a quiet decision, until a student refused. A freshman girl named Alyssa stood up during homeroom, pulled out her phone, and played Harper's London performance on speaker. She stood, hand over heart. By the end of the song, 7 others stood too. The teacher told her to turn it off. She refused. She was suspended. The clip hit TikTok, tagged #Harper Effect. Within hours, students across the country started doing it, playing Harper's anthem in schoolyards, in gyms, in locker rooms before games. Some wore shirts with her face. Others simply wrote, "One lung, one flag," on their arms. The country split. Some schools banned it. Others embraced it. One teacher in Florida was fired for playing it in class without permission. Trump's campaign was in the middle of preparing for a massive rally in Michigan when the anthem wars broke out. His advisors urged him not to bring it up. "Let the girl rest," they said. "Don't make this your culture war." But Trump saw it differently. He stepped onto the rally stage and said, "I told a girl with one lung she could sing the anthem because she believed in it more than most people breathing fine today. Now they want to ban her voice? That's not culture war. That's a war on courage." The crowd erupted. It became his rally cry. Not politics, not polling. Patriotism. Every rally after that opened the same way. A 90-second recording of Harper's anthem. No lights, no intro, just that voice. Shaky, brave, real. The RNC offered to fly Harper out for the national convention, to sing live, prime time. But Trump said no. She doesn't need to be our mascot. She already gave us enough. Instead, a 60-second clip of her London performance played on screen. No commentary. Just the image of her face as she hit the final line. The crowd stood in silence before the music even ended. Afterward, Trump stepped up and said, "When they mock her, they mock you. When they silence her, they silence the part of this country that still believes in something." Back in Liberty Falls, Harper sat on her couch, oxygen tube humming gently. She asked her mom, "Did I do something wrong?" Her mom shook her head. "You did something unforgettable." But Harper had one more thing to say. She looked at her mom and whispered, "Can I sing again?" Her mom hesitated. "For who?" Harper replied, "For the ones who are afraid to." The leaves in Liberty Falls had just begun to change. School buses hummed along the back roads, porch flags hung still in the morning fog, and inside a small ranch house on the edge of town, Harper sat at her piano bench, staring out the window. Her oxygen tank hissed faintly. She'd grown quieter since the noise began. The media, the arguments, the attacks. It wasn't fear that kept her silent. It was purpose. Harper wasn't done. Not yet. One morning, she turned to her mom and asked softly, "What if the last thing I ever say is a song?" Her mom swallowed hard. "Then let's make sure it's the one that matters most." They made a plan. No headlines, no studio, just a cell phone, a piano, and Harper's voice. She asked her teacher from church, Mr. Ellison, to help. He was old, soft-spoken, and could barely play in tune anymore. But Harper said, "I don't want perfect. I want honest." They recorded it in one take. No edits, no filters. The entire town stayed quiet that afternoon, as if the hills themselves knew something was happening. When it ended, Harper looked into the camera and said, "This isn't a performance. This is a prayer for the country I love. Whatever happens next, I sang the truth." She handed the recording to her mom, but her mom didn't upload it. She sent it to one person, Trump. The file was marked "Private from Harper. Use only if it's time." It arrived on a Tuesday. He was in New Hampshire, prepping for the final rally sprint. His team was reviewing polling data. The room buzzed with strategy, but Trump stepped out, sat alone in a side office, and pressed play. For 3 minutes, he didn't blink. When the song ended, he stood up, walked back into the meeting, and said, "Cancel tomorrow's agenda. We're going to let her speak instead." His team scrambled. "You mean play the London clip again?" "No," Trump said. "She just gave us the anthem for the storm." He made one call, a media contact with national reach, someone who owed him a favor. Then he scheduled a live stream, an anthem for the forgotten. That was the title. The live stream opened with no intro, just Harper, sitting in her living room. Red dress, bare feet, fingers on the piano. She sang slower this time, gentler, but every note held weight. By the time she reached the final line, over 47 million people were watching live. In truck stops, firehouses, small-town churches, nursing homes, even some networks, though they tried not to, couldn't help but cover it. and at the very end of the stream, a black screen appeared with white text. Let the next leader carry a voice worth following. Harper Collins, age 10. Trump never added commentary. He didn't need to. The video broke records. But more than that, it broke walls. Veterans posted videos of themselves saluting the screen. Children who had never sung aloud before sent in clips of them whispering the anthem. Even critics had to pause. One journalist tweeted, "I don't agree with the politics, but that little girl just reminded me what I stopped believing in." The media tried to twist it. Again, said Trump was exploiting her. But by then, the people didn't care what the media said. They heard something that cut through noise. Truth. Hope. A girl with one lung singing like the whole world depended on it. Backstage at his final rally, just before stepping out, Trump looked at his staff and said, "They'll remember this anthem longer than any speech I ever gave." And he was right. The sun rose slowly over Liberty Falls. It was November. Cold. Still. The kind of morning where the sky looked pale with uncertainty. Harper sat wrapped in a quilt, watching the wind tug gently at the flag outside her window. Her oxygen tank hissed beside her, steady and low. She didn't know the results yet. Her mom hadn't turned on the news. They were waiting, not for the numbers, but for the feeling. Across the country, Americans held their breath. The vote had been close, closer than anyone expected. But the night before, something strange happened. After polls closed, before projections were called, Harper's anthem re-aired, unprompted, on dozens of networks. Not because of Trump, not because of orders, because local stations everywhere were getting flooded with one request: play the girl again. And so they did. No commentary, no logos, just a little girl singing into a storm. In Montana, a rancher recorded himself standing at attention with tears in his beard. In Philadelphia, a former union leader who hadn't voted in 12 years said, "She sang the country back into me." In a hospital in Arizona, a nurse played the anthem over the intercom during a midnight shift change. No one moved for 3 minutes. Trump didn't speak to press that night. He didn't host a party. No fireworks. Just a quiet gathering with his closest team. Watching. Waiting. The results came in just before dawn. It was official. Donald J. Trump had won, not by a landslide, not by a miracle, by inches. But those inches were paved by something no pollster could have tracked. A whisper in the heart. A cracked final note. A voice no one expected. As networks made the call, Trump stood in silence. His team waited for him to speak. But he didn't. He walked to the side, took out his phone, and texted one person. "Thank you. You gave them a reason to believe again." DT. Back in Liberty Falls, Harper's mom saw the message light up. She turned to her daughter and whispered, "He won." Harper didn't smile. She nodded, slowly, like she already knew. Then said, "Now he has to lead like someone's listening." 3 hours later, the front porch filled with reporters. They wanted a statement, a follow-up, another anthem. But Harper didn't come out. Instead, her mom stepped outside, holding a single sheet of paper. She read from it quietly. "My name is Harper. I am 10 years old. I sang because I love America, not because I was told to. I never asked for anyone to stand, but I'm grateful they did. Now that the election is over, I only have one hope: that we remember what brought us together wasn't a speech or a slogan. It was a song, and I hope we keep singing." And that was it. No fanfare, no campaign message, just a closing chord on the most unexpected chapter in American political history. Trump didn't mention her during his victory speech. He didn't need to. But when he stepped up to the podium in Washington to give his first post-election remarks, something unusual happened. Before he spoke, before the flag was raised, before the applause, a single audio clip played over the speakers, Harper's anthem, start to finish. No one said a word until it ended. And when it did, Trump simply looked at the crowd and said, "Now, let's earn that song." Snow came early to Liberty Falls. By mid-December, the streets were frosted white, and the trees along Main Street glittered with homemade ornaments. But something else filled the air, something quieter than politics, and stronger than tradition. It was reverence, not for a politician, not even for a country, but for a little girl who had reminded everyone what either of those could mean. Harper spent most of her days near the window now. Her energy was low, her voice weaker than it had been in months, but her spirit unshaken. She never asked about the cameras or the attention. She didn't care who was president. What mattered to her were the people who still wrote letters: children, veterans, single moms, immigrants, soldiers. Each one said the same thing in different words. "You made me proud to be American again." One Saturday morning, while Harper was playing a slow hymn on her keyboard, her mom peeked out the window and froze. There, in front of the house, parked quietly with no press, no sirens, no crowds, was a single black SUV. A man stepped out. Suit jacket, red tie, familiar stride. It was him. Donald Trump. He didn't bring a photographer. He didn't bring staff. He brought a Bible. He stepped onto the porch, gently removed his hat, and knocked. When Harper opened the door, she didn't gasp. She didn't cheer. She smiled. "You came." He nodded. "I told you I wouldn't forget." They sat in the living room. No fanfare, no script. Trump took in the quiet space, the piano, the oxygen tank, the letters stacked high in the corner like unread history books. "I wanted to come sooner," he said, "but I needed to figure out what to say." Harper shrugged. "You don't have to say anything." But he did. "I made a decision," he said, "not as a politician, as an American." He reached into his coat and pulled out a folder. Inside was a single document. Presidential Order Number 001, January 2025. The Harper Collins National Anthem Legacy Act. It was short. It called for the creation of a permanent scholarship fund in Harper's name, dedicated to children who showed courage through voice, art, or public service. It also established that, moving forward, the recording of Harper's anthem would be preserved in the National Archives, not because it was perfect, but because it was real. He handed her the folder. "I can't promise politics will get better," he said, "but maybe voices like yours can outlast all of it." Harper's fingers trembled as she touched the paper. Then she looked up. "Is this forever?" Trump nodded. "You already earned it." Before he left, he did one more thing. He opened the Bible he had brought. Inside the front cover was a handwritten note. "For Harper. You reminded me how powerful a whisper can be. May your voice echo louder than mine ever could. Donald J. Trump." Then he stood, and she did something unexpected. She sang. Just one line. No piano, no crowd. "Oh, say, can you see?" Trump didn't move. She stopped there, smiled. "That's enough for today." He nodded, then walked out into the cold. The winter was long. Snow blanketed Liberty Falls for weeks. But the town didn't complain. They'd grown used to quiet, used to reflection, and used to Harper's absence from the porch window. She hadn't been seen much since Trump's visit. Not because she was hiding, but because her body was growing tired. Even her doctor, a man of science, called it spirit exhaustion. Her lungs were failing, but her purpose had never burned brighter. Inside her room, Harper kept a box of letters by her bed. She read one each morning, and with every word, every shaky, grateful, patriotic scribble, she remembered what she had done. She hadn't won an award. She hadn't made a fortune. She'd reminded a country how to stand. And then, quietly, gently, the moment came. Early February, just before sunrise. Her mom was asleep in the chair beside her bed. Harper opened her eyes, looked at the ceiling, and whispered, "Thank you, God, for letting me sing." Then she closed her eyes again, and didn't open them. The nation mourned, not as a spectacle, but as a family. The news broke gently, first from Liberty Falls Church, then picked up by local radio. Trump's office released a single sentence. Today, a little girl with one lung taught the country how to breathe again. Flags were lowered to half-staff. School children across the country sang her version of the anthem during morning announcements. A moment of silence echoed through Capitol Hill. Veterans held vigils. Even critics stopped talking. No one had the words to explain what she'd done. But Trump did. 1 week later, he stood at the National Mall. No teleprompter, no press badges, just a folded paper in his coat pocket and a photo of Harper on a nearby podium. He looked out at the quiet crowd and said, "She didn't run for office. She didn't ask for votes. She didn't yell. She just sang. And in that song, we remembered who we were supposed to be. She didn't save a party. She saved our heart." He paused, held up the folded sheet. This was the last thing she wrote. Her mom gave it to me. No one's heard it, but it's time. He read it aloud. "Dear America, if you're hearing this, I'm probably singing somewhere better. Don't be sad. I got everything I wanted. I got to sing for you. Promise me one thing. Sing louder next time. Sing even if your voice shakes. Sing even if no one's listening. Because one day, someone will, and it'll change everything. Love, Harper." There wasn't a sound, not even wind. Then, slowly, one man placed his hand over his heart. Then another. Then a woman sang the first line. "Oh, say, can you see?" More joined. By the time the final words were sung, the anthem wasn't coming from a stage. It was coming from a people, a country. Healed, if only for a moment, by the legacy of one girl who sang like the world needed her. And because one man gave her the mic. The girl with one lung who sang the anthem, because Trump said she could, was gone. But her note never stopped echoing, and it never will. And that's where Harper's story ends, at least for now. One little voice, one quiet act of courage, a reminder that no American is too small to matter. No breath is wasted when it's used to lift others up. Where are you watching from today? Drop a comment and let us know. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of something we've all been forgetting, tap like and hit subscribe. We share powerful stories like this every week to bring light, courage, and unity back into the conversation. Share this with someone who needs to believe in something again. Your support helps keep these stories alive and spreading to the people who need them most. Thanks for being here. We'll see you in the next one.